Well, good afternoon, everyone listening in. This is Tracey. I'm the host, and this is my first show, which is very exciting because I got some of the best people I could have ever imagined on the show with me this afternoon. And this is Tracey's Keeping It Real this afternoon. We're talking about Turning Point and a dynamic person that started this organization that I had the pleasure of working with for many years. And his name is Peter Hayden. And so Peter is, unfortunately, after all these wonderful years, he's leaving the organization, which we all do. I mean, it comes to a point where all good things must come to an end. But Peter, tell me, and I also at this time have Lori Wilson in here, and we're going to talk to Lori a little bit later in this show about her views and vision on where she plans on taking Turning Point as she takes the helm in running this wonderful organization. But Turning Point is an African-American organization that it talks about addiction recovery and community advocacy. And Peter's been that advocate for people that have been struggling with this illness for quite a while. Mm-hmm. Peter's been with Turning Point and actually began in 1976. That was 47 years ago. So Peter, tell me a little bit about how the Turning Point got started, and let's go back, because I remember Peter from when I was 14 years old. He just asked me, how old were you when you were there? And I'm like, I think he thought I was a little older, but I was actually 14 doing a summer internship, and that was with IBCA, which later turned, and that was for Institute on Black Chemical Abuse, which later turned out to be MIBCA, which people probably know of it today, that the last name was African American Family Services. So Peter, let's start there with your career with IBCA.
Sure. Thank you, Tracey. I have my heart, every time I see you, it just flutters because I've watched you grow and do so much. And in 75, IBCA started. 76, Turning Point started. And the reason we did that is because we had to have an organization that would pump the energy into a Turning Point. So we got the clients we got the clients after you because you wanted to make sure who was ready for outpatient and who was ready for inpatient. And y'all were the inpatient side of it. And Peter Bell, my buddy, we used to always get mixed up because it was Peter Hayden and Peter Bell. And it was just a tremendous opportunity because we had young people like you, and then we had a little older people like me.
And we had quite a few people seasoned in there.
A lot. Bob Few and Jim Bransford. Eleanor, excuse me. And just had a sound group of people. And in doing that, you moved to where you're at now. You know, you're the advocate for the community with regards to speaking out for the community. These are the things, like what you said, your show is called it, Keep It Real. And that was part of the thing that happened. But I want to say to you this, you and I had some great conversations at a young age, and you really helped me understand some things that were going on. That's where Lori is going to come in. It's time for Lori to make that step. And as we talk about why, you'll know why I'm finishing up with it and why Lori is working for us. Here's the deal. I'm 80 years old.
No, you don't look a day over 60.
Okay, say that again.
You don't look a day over 60.
Okay, what about 50? Can we do 50?
Can we do 50?
Yeah. And I've been running Turning Point for 47 years. It's time, Everybody, you said earlier, it comes a time for everyone to decide what they're going to do with their life. You can either stand up or you can sit down, but either way, you got to be breathing. Turning Point.
That helps.
That's right. Turning Point has done a great job, over 26,000 men and women. You remember when we started, it was a co-ed program, and we're going to go back to that, but Lori will talk about that. What I'm looking for is the opportunity to step into another phase of life.
Okay.
You know, so when people say, "Oh, you're retiring," no, I'm not retiring. I'm going to another step. I'm taking another step, and so I'm going to be the new ambassador for Turning Point. I won't have to go to work every day. I won't have to fire nobody. I won't have to do any of those things. I'll just get out there and let people know what Turning Point has done. You know, if you look at the 4 foundations that funded us, that was Cargill, General Mills, McKnight Foundation, and Honeywell, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to send them a note saying, this is what your money did over 47 years. Mm-hmm. We have served over 26,000 people, and those people are not the same as they were when they first came here. Mm-hmm. People need to know that. You know, we've gone so far that I'm old school now. You know, nobody knows what Turning Point's about. You know, oh, back in the day, they did X, Y, and Z. Well, back in the day, it was your mom and your dad who came through Turning Point to make sure you are okay now.
And that's what it's. And speaking, you entered into the perfect place where I wanted to ask you, what's the mission? What was the mission then and today for Turning Point?
Yeah, that's a great question. We were a culturally specific service center even back in the day, but now the emphasis was on black men and women. I have no qualms about that. Today it's a little different, but back then it was so many African American men and women and children not being served by the community. And so we saw a void in that. And so our mission was to, when we find you wherever you are, it was our job to make you healthy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you've seen a lot of different people coming through, but what were some of the qualifications for your services so that they could come through? What did they have to, what was the qualifications?
We didn't have no qualification. If you were drunk, if you had a drug problem, you could come to Turning Point. Okay. No qualification.
It didn't matter about their race, their gender, the religion, what
That's
city
correct.
They lived in.
That's correct.
The doors were open for them.
That's correct. That you hit it right on the head. Yes.
Wow, and that's dynamic because if there's anything that stops people, then they're never going to come to you.
Right. Yes.
Because you just put something in front of them that was an excuse. That a lot of addicts look for excuses.
Right. Right.
So, what type of the length of program then do you have when they come in? What happens? Walk me through a day of me walking in, needing help, and I get the chance to meet Mr. Hayden. Mm-hmm. What happens?
Well, you going back to the day. Back in the day, there was we had a bench in the house that we had our program in, and when you first come in, you sit on the bench. Mm-hmm. And it was a very simple question we asked of everyone, and that was, why are you here? Do you know 99% of the people, it took them 3 to 4 days to figure it out. Mm-hmm. Because they thought it was very, very educational what people had to say. And all I was asking, all they had to say is that my life is unmanageable, and I need someone to help me get back on the right track. Mm-hmm. That's what the program looked like. Again, you remember, it was a 90 to 80 year, not 80 year, but it was a program that took, you had a year. That's what it was, a year. That's why our outcomes were so great, because you weren't being rushed off. Mm-hmm. You came there until you got yourself together, and the help that we gave, and that's why IBCA, you came into view, is that we had IBCA to help us with the outpatient side. So when people finished up with Turning Point, we went back to IBCA for your outcome services.
Nice.
Yeah.
And one of the things too, Peter, I remember about IBCA, and even as a young lady, 14 years old, that's why I went to school to become a chemical dependency counselor.
Yeah.
Was that I knew that everyone that came through the program, this is what really made me respect and admire Peter Bell, Eleanor, all the folks that were there when I was there. Everyone came through that life. Mm-hmm. So you couldn't, you
trick them.
You couldn't dupe the players because they already had been there.
Right.
You know, they lived that life. They knew what sobriety was. They knew what, when you come in and you're slick talking and you don't realize that you need help, that you're at a point where you need help. Mm-hmm. You think you're there because somebody told you to be there. You were mandated to be there. But once you realize it, then once you got a person like Peter that understood where you were and from where you were coming, and he already could see it, it made that program even more successful.
Right.
So I'm very, very proud of you, Peter, in terms of how you turned so many lives around and saved so many lives. Yeah. Turning Point is a very important organization in our community, and without it, I don't know what we would do.
But you see, the whole, this is the whole piece, and I always give it back to you, give it back to others. I know I've done a great job because I'm sitting here on your show. I'm sitting here reading your magazine, paper, and things of this nature. So I know I did a good job, and so I don't take any of that from me. I give it back, and that's what the program's about. That's what your company does. Mm-hmm. It gives back. It formulates ideas or whatever the case is, then it puts it in print, and you give it back.
Isn't that a beautiful thing?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what life is all about, is giving back.
Yeah.
Peter, you mentioned earlier about the 4 foundations that have helped you to fund Turning Point. Mm-hmm. I just got some information, which is a wonderful thing, that the city's investing $500,000 into Turning Point.
Yeah.
What are your plans? And that's for the nonprofit on the north side that provides, and they did this, that's for nonprofits that provide culturally specific behavioral health services and training. What's your plans for that? And I know that might be more of an Ellen or a Laura question, but for when it came under your watch, so what's your what were your plans when you thought about that?
Let me just say this: the program that you talked about. What did we do back in the day? Because I don't want to miss that. Back in the day, I said it met you where you were at. So if you had children, if you didn't have children, whatever the case is, our program was administered around where you were. We use 12 steps of AA, but we also use the 7 steps of Kwanzaa. You follow me? Mm-hmm. Because that's a part of it. Because we're trying to get you that you're special. So we treat, you hit it on the head. Whether you're Muslim, if you're Christian, whatever the case is, it doesn't matter. Because what you are is you are a drug addict or a drunk. And that's what we're going to look at. Those kind of things. Now, getting back to the money. Those 4 organizations that I talked to you that we send letters to, there was no African American program meeting the needs of African Americans. There were no, and I'm talking about African American, there were no black people being treated, black women. You understand? So we said, we got to stop this. So it was, I think, a time and place, and that's our motto. It was a time and place to change your mind. But we weren't talking about the people that we serve. We were talking about the people who give the dollars, because they didn't know what they were doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. And so we come along. Peter Bell said, hey, hold it. This is a need for this organization, not to qualify it in a way that it's like what you like. It's to qualify what we need. And that's what we've been doing. Now, Lori comes along. She understands. She was an accountant and these kind of things, so she understood the money, but that's not why she came along. Lori understood the people because of her father and because of her mother, who was an educator. vice president of Pillsbury. Okay, so for me, I had to grow. I've gone as far as I can go, and then all of a sudden, here comes Lori to take it to the finish line.
Okay. Well, that's a good intro into Lori. Lori Wilson is here with us, and Peter has talked about you're taking it to the finish line, which is very exciting.
It is exciting.
I happen to be a proud person to see a woman taking the helm, just because I'm a woman taking this helm here. So I have that little bias with me, but certainly you've been with Turning Point for a little while, then you left and you stepped out into the corporate world and you came back as the CFO, which is a great place to start back in an organization. So tell me, Lori, what are your plans for the future of Turning Point from you taking the helm and moving it forward?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tracey. I appreciate your show. I appreciate this man right here for giving me the opportunity. I'm just going to step back a bit. I was a young child, I should say. Actually, not that young. But I was young coming into Turning Point. I learned a lot then, learned a lot about, working within an African-American organization. Amazing opportunity, right? And so then life took its changes, turns. And so then I went out into the corporate world. Learned a lot out there, but always had this passion for my North Side. I was born and raised North Side, 12th and Upton. And so I had this thing about Turning Point, and Peter and I joke about it. I never left, driving down Golden Valley Road, just, looking at like, okay, we're good. And then I had the opportunity to join the board, got on the board for a little bit, and then there was this awesome opportunity to look inside the organization even deeper as the CFO. And so, again, thank you for that opportunity because it gave me the chance to utilize some of those skills I had coming in from the corporate sector. So, right off the bat, I'm like, Turning Point is a 47-year-old organization, right? And so, the notion of it being done when Dr. Hayden left, I just couldn't see that. This is something that's been a pillar of the community for years. People know Turning Point, but then, it's kind of lost a bit of what does Turning Point do, right? And so it's not just a treatment center. So we do have a residential program. It's a high-intensity program that's 90 days, and then they move on to our group residential housing, which is Emerson, and we have folks there that then are, not only are they still in an outpatient program, because you can't just go from a high-intensity program to just nothing. We're still trying to support you through your recovery. So you get there, and you're doing an outpatient service, you have housing, you have food, just trying to support individuals through their recovery, right? After that, we also have our awesome apartments down on Glenwood that we're doing some renovations on. You asked about that money from the city. So we've got $500,000 to invest or reinvest into our properties there. There's a lot of work there. I joke around too because my grandma lived in those apartments back in the 60s. So I'm like, so when I walked in, I'm like, it looks still like my grandma's house. So I'm like, there needs to be some updates, right? And so, and really, it's really about our clients and making sure that they get what they deserve and live like, productive citizens out here. And that's what we want.
How many units are in that apartment complex?
There's 17 in one, and then there's 14 in the other.
Nice, okay.
Yeah, and then we've got this space in the middle that there's like this playground set, and there's another opportunity to actually build something in between that. So that $500,000 is enough just to get it nice, right? But we're looking at the bonding bill coming up to see if we can get some more money too.
Yeah, because $500,000 might sound like a lot to our listeners.
Yep, it goes real
fast.
But
unfortunately, it's just not quite enough when you're really trying to do something that's sustainable. So I understand.
Yes. So you had talked about the $500,000. First off the bat was $1 million from the state of Minnesota. Bobby, or Senator Champion, excuse me.
I know. See, it's hard,
It's
when,
hard.
when we grew up with everybody.
Yeah, because we go back to the Children of Life and the Elks marching down Plymouth Avenue.
Right, with Bobby.
Yes, with Bobby.
Yeah.
So, so that was an awesome experience, Peter. Thank you again for coaching me through that, because I had never done any testimony in front of the Senate like that. So that was an awesome experience, and within weeks we were awarded $1 million, and that was great. But then backing up even further, Councilmember Vita really put us back on the map. Her mother came through the program some years ago when it first started, right? And so she's got a vested interest in making sure that Turning Point gets back on her feet and in a better space. So yeah, the $1 million is for the property on 1500 Golden Valley Road, the residential area. We currently have a space for 24 beds, so we're trying to expand that, right? Because there's a need out there in the community. So we're trying to get that to 32 by 2024, and then even expand even more. The building was built for something else back in the 90s, right? And so now we're trying to redirect and just configure the space so that it can, hold more people, and that's what we need to do. So.
Well, I'm excited about the opportunity to host more people. How long does a person get to stay there once they come through? And then tell me a little bit about the tools that you offer them once it's time. Because I imagine in order for you see a lot of people through the years, so you can't keep everybody housed forever. Yeah. So they do have to move on. So how long is that? And then what tools do they have that makes them stay sober as they move forward outside of their desire? Yeah,
that's a good question. We so they stay there for 90 days. Now, it does get reevaluated at that point. So if they do need to stay longer, they can stay longer. We're not like, oh, after that 90 days, you're gone. No, that's not the case. So we reevaluate that. We've got counseling staff of about 5 right now. And so really in tune to what the needs of the clients are. And if they're not ready, we're not going to kick them out. It's they can be extended, if they need to. So, but the baseline is 90 days, and then they move to our other residential housing. I would say, just in terms of the programs, we have our peer recovery coaches that really are there. They're almost like a subsidiary to our counseling services, right? So while they're going through, they're also meeting with those peer recovery coaches so they know what to do once they leave, right? And they're giving them those resources educationally, job-wise, all these services that they need to be okay once they leave. We also have a mental health component, because you really got to think about what's the root cause of the issue. And so if you get down to what happened, what happened in someone's life, you don't just start drinking or doing, drugs just because, right? There's something behind that. So we have a mental health component to our services, and that's really been kind of the key to it, understanding kind of what's going on with the clients, because you can't treat at this level if you don't understand what that bottom is. So super proud of that. And, we've recently got a grant from Hennepin County for our opioid grant, and that's going to treat and really educate our staff in terms of this drug that has been really, going through our community like nobody's business, especially the youth. They don't know what this drug is doing. The education behind that, they're just using it because they don't know. And they don't understand, this could kill you. Mm-hmm. Like, really. Death is death. That's done, right? And so the education piece behind that is really very important to our deal. We've been working with some folks just recently talking about, because we are an 18 and up service right now, but right now we're looking at how do we reach those kids in high school? How do we reach the kids in grade school? It's affecting them as well.
Tracey, you may not have known, and thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You may not have been old enough, but you've heard about heroin.
Yes,
That's
unfortunately
what the
I've heard
new-
about it.
And
Yeah.
that's the new that's the new drugs that's going out and things of this nature. And so that's what the opioid piece is about, is that letting people know it hasn't left the community, but people went to jail where other folk went to probation.
Yeah.
At one time, cocaine, everybody was doing cocaine because it was okay. But then all of a sudden, kids and other high-powered people, children started to die, and then it was a problem. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to show other people, not to lambast them. We was at a meeting, last Friday?
Yep.
Opioid task force. The young man who's running that task force has had some drug issues. But now he's coming to Turning Point to see how we do things, how we get it done, because it's not being taken care of. And that's the other voice, and that's where I come in, is that I'm going to be there as an ambassador, making sure that people understand it's a culture, but it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And these lifestyles, think about it. Marijuana, it was illegal a year ago.
Not
Now
today.
you can,
Right.
you can come to work, right?
You
Can
can
come
go
to
through
work?
the Skyway.
You may
and grab
you
something
may
before you
get laid off.
Yeah,
You
you
come
come
to
in.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On substance,
with
yeah.
all those substances.
Yeah.
Acapulco Gold. They changed
Oh, them are old names.
That's right.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's still doing the
It's the
same
same thing.
thing
Yeah.
to our community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so and you just hit on the head, the name change. She called drugs differently than what we did when we was coming up.
Right.
Right. But they
Yeah.
like you say, Peter, they still reflect the same.
Yeah.
Yes.
And let me ask you something. When you talk about a name, what made you come up? Did you create Turning Point? Was that your decision with that name?
I must say I did.
And where did that name come from, Peter?
Now I'll tell you how it happened. My co-founder was Henry Sullivan, Lucille's Kitchen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the co-founder.
Okay.
He and I and a guy named attorney named Irv Nemerov,
Okay.
whose wife was in the program. We went to what's the name of the Skip's Barbecue.
Okay. Wow, you going back?
Yeah.
We're gonna go back to where's the place over there, Riverview, in a minute.
Riverview, that's right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
And so we were just talking. What are we gonna name this thing? And I said, after we had a bunch of names, I said, it should be the turning point of our lives. This is before Tyrone Davis made the song. And it just hooked. When people come to us, they have to come to us, and we have to be there to turn their lives around. And that's where it came from.
Wow. So was it the turning point of your life?
That's where the name came from.
That's
It was the
exactly
turning
what-
point of my life. That's
Absolutely,
right.
and I just told somebody that the other day as I was thinking about this wonderful opportunity to sit down and have this conversation with you. I said, I wonder if it was Peter's turning point in his life.
Right.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So that's a one. I mean, the name speaks so loudly because if you come there,
Yeah.
it becomes the turning point in your
Yes.
life.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you start, and then again, I think a lot of it and when you said the young man came to Turning Point to kind of find out what you guys are doing that makes it work. I
Yeah.
think a lot of that, what makes it work, I go back to saying, it's you walk through them shoes.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times people create things and they don't have a clue what makes people tick.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But when you do something that you've gone through it,
That's right.
now you know what makes people tick, because you know some of the things that may trigger or not.
Yeah.
You can kind of be a better advocate for them. So it's a wonderful thing that you're able. Not that you had to go through it, but that you went through it and you came out to be who you are today, which is really a pillar in our community.
Yeah.
And really being able to help a lot of people is a wonderful thing.
Well, it worked for me. That's the other part.
Yeah.
It worked. You see, sometimes you can go through some changes, and there's people. remember when we used to talk about dry drunk?
Yeah.
People ain't no different than what they were. They just ain't doing marijuana or drinking liquor.
But they still act like they did when they was drunk.
There you go.
Yeah. Same person in that way, and not necessarily in a good way.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You know, so that's our whole piece. You know, I was like, you know, I went through the treatment and I never went back.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But you learned through treatment.
I learned, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so there are people, some people have gone through treatment several times.
Yeah.
A guy was on the other day.
Yeah.
So I'm not above you because I only went through once. It's just I was listening. I was ready.
Yeah.
You see, and that's what we try to do.
Mm-hmm.
We try to be ready or to take the client with the time can get to a point where they're ready.
Yep.
And how many times, you mentioned that you only went through it once, and there's people that go through it several. Is there a limit on how many times people can come through Turning Point?
No.
If you can get up in the morning and say, I think this is going to be the year or the day or whatever, we're going to take you.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. Even if we just seen you last month,
Yep.
walking out the door,
Yeah.
we welcome you to come back, walking back in the door. Is that
Always
right?
open.
Yeah.
Always open.
Wow.
And that's the beauty of it. You
Yeah.
know, it's kind of like, it's like your family, right? You never turn down family. You always let them in, regardless.
Always. And we know most services, it takes money for everything to run. I get that. I can't run the paper for free as much as I would love to.
Yeah.
However, if I don't have insurance, do I get turned away, or what services do I get?
Nope, because if you don't have insurance, we find ways, right? The state, we've got all kinds of funding sources that we can tap into. So that shouldn't be a hindrance to coming to Turning Point. We'll figure it out.
Nice.
Just come in. We'll figure it out, right? Never have we once turned anybody down because of financial reasons. It's usually just because someone's not ready and they want to go, you know, and come back. But they're always welcome to come back.
Nice.
Now, one of the things that we'll do if you come too many times, you may need to go somewhere else.
Okay.
But we will
I
provide
can
that.
understand that.
We'll never let you go. You know what I'm saying? But if you come into the program and you know the words more than the counselor knows.
Reciting the curriculum.
Yeah. You know, but I guess the point is, as Lori said, we'll never let you go. So that counselor you had at Turning Point will be your counselor if you go to Park Avenue or wherever it is. You know, because it's important. Because the thing that saved my life is that the community, y'all didn't let me go. And you know how I was.
Yeah.
You know, I was.
Accountability.
But Jack never said, Peter's not my friend any longer. You know, and that's, again, that we took that up because it's not hard. You know, you just got to have common sense.
Right.
You know, the person who told, well, this is how it was said. Peter's a diamond in the rough, but we got to put enough pressure on him to make him the diamond and not the coal.
Right. And that does work. It worked for you, Peter. And
It sure did.
And we hope that it'll work for some of the listening audience that's out there today as far as really understanding where they're at, because we know that people are struggling today. And people get help in so many different ways, and they come through it in so many different ways. But sometimes it takes a nudge. And Peter, like he mentioned, Jack, that's actually Jack Jackman, my uncle, he's talking about, who was his friend. He was always there. So we always need somebody to be there to support us in anything we do.
Absolutely.
And if it's coming through recovery, it's so important.
Yeah.
But if someone's trying, then Lori, to help their family get help, because that's maybe sometimes the first step is family making that call for you. Seldom do you make the call for yourself, but sometimes you actually do.
Yep.
How do people connect to getting into Turning Point? How can they get to you?
Well, there's several different ways. One is just, a phone call, 612-520-4004. That's our number. It's been our number forever. We also have a website that, you can connect that way, ourturningpoint.org. And then, again, I think word of mouth, folks just know where we're at. 1500 Golden Valley Road, never left. We're always there. Doors are always open. I want to say this too, Tracey, because you said in the beginning, like, what's the vision? We talked about this, Peter and I. It's to we sat up nights, like he'd call me and like, what's the vision, Lori? What's the vision? And so we thought about it, and really, just imagine having Turning Point, like we have it in North Minneapolis right now, but just imagine having it in South Dakota, in Iowa, Waterloo, and all these different, satellites of Turning Point. That could, that 26,000 can go just out blow that out the water. And if we can do that, basically, just because of the support that we've gotten from Turning Point, from Peter, our community support, those funders out there, those folks know and they want to give. And so we're really trying to tap into that. But I just think about it going down 35W. We could, be in Waterloo, Iowa. We could be in Des Moines, and we can see Turning Point on the corner. That's right. Like, how awesome can that be? Transportation, all that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We just following up, piggybacking off of. We thought about the vision, and why should there not be a vision in Duluth,
right,
in Rochester, all these places where people who look like us they're there. Yesterday, all over the news, they were going to tear down this what they call it, the condominium, where the people have put up the tents.
Oh, yeah.
They put them up, and they were going to get rid of them, I think, today, but they were going to take another week or whatever the case is. I guarantee you that 90% of those people need to be in Turning Point.
Yeah, I'm certain. I think that you're probably 100% right on that. Yeah.
And so, but that's why you're doing for us. Mm-hmm. People are listening to you, and they know. Don't just sit back. Call the numbers, 520-4004, and ask for help. I'm okay if you say, I don't want it. Yeah. But we are not going to continue to accept folks saying there's nothing there for us. That's why you brought us on this show.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, because there's so much to life if you want it, And I think that some people, unfortunately, just don't see the hope. They don't see a future. Mm-hmm. But everyone's got a hope and everyone's got a future, and they just have to call that number. What's that number again, Lori?
612-520-4004.
So that they can get the help. And Peter, remind them again, what's that website they can go to so they can just look up and see what the services are?
You can go to ourturningpoint.org.
Okay, so we got lots of ways, and they can walk in. They can walk right into the 1500 Golden Valley address. Right now. Yep. There's somebody although they're here with me on the air, there's someone there to receive you.
Absolutely.
And let today be the first day of the rest of your life.
Oh, great. That's great.
And make it your turning point. So thank you so much for coming and joining me this afternoon.
We really appreciate you.
It's been my pleasure.
Because it is your time. This era is yours, and you're in leadership, and you need to go ahead and do your thing. Don't follow. You never followed ever since I've known you, and just go ahead and step out there and step strong.
I'm going to step strong, and I'm going to bring you guys along because we're going to start some information on our website as we partner and figure out ways to work with Turning Point, because it's very important that we help the mission get out there and the vision get out there so that we can help more lives. Because to me, everything we do, if we continue to reach out and educate and inform and inspire like the paper does, and bring along partners like Turning Point, we got nowhere to go but up. Yep. So I look forward to this continued partnership and relationship. I wish you, Peter, a lot of success in your next world that you're moving into.
Thank you.
I guess I'm going to have to figure out how to grab you, because I know once people retire, you always want to get them before they get too relaxed.
Right.
Lori, I want to continue to work with you in your new position as the CEO of Turning Point. Is that your new title is going to be?
That's a new title, yes.
And congratulations once again to you. And I want to thank all of our listening audience and our viewers this afternoon for being with us. And until next time, remember, Tracey's keeping it real.
All right. Thank you.